When you do not know who you are, you open the door to confusion, not just within yourself, but within the relationships you create. Love becomes distorted. It ceases to be an authentic meeting of souls and becomes a projection of unresolved wounds. You do not fall in love. You fall into patterns, into illusions, into need. And what masquerades as intimacy is often a desperate attempt to avoid meeting yourself. The greatest tragedy in human love is not heartbreak, it is self-forgetting. It is when a person gives themselves away in the hope that someone else will return them whole. But no one can complete you. No one can save you from the task of becoming yourself. And yet, this is precisely what happens in the absence of self-acknowledge. You attract what seems familiar, not what is true. You seek comfort in the repetition of what you already know, even if what you know has always hurt you. Love becomes mediocre not because love itself is lacking, but because the one seeking it has not yet recognized their own depth. You begin to think that the sparks of superficial passion or the security of routine affection are enough. You tell yourself that something is better than nothing, that this person is good enough, that maybe your standards are too high. But beneath these thoughts lies a quiet ache, a knowing that what you have settled for is not a reflection of your soul, but a reflection of your fear. This is where the danger lies. When you do not love yourself completely, you will mistake emotional survival for connection. You will confuse dependency with devotion. You will mistake recognition for resonance. And you will stay in places that diminish you because you do not yet know that you deserve more. Most people do not fall into mediocrity because they want to. They fall into it because they do not believe they are worthy of death. They seek others to give them what they are not willing to give themselves. They want to be seen, yet they refuse to look inward. They want to be chosen, yet they have not chosen themselves. And so love becomes negotiation, compromise, a soft erosion of identity in exchange for temporary validation. But love, real love, cannot bloom where there is no self. To love another with depth, you must first meet the depth within yourself. You must be willing to descend into the parts of you that you have kept hidden, the parts that feel too messy, too unlovable, too fragile. These are the parts that long to be held, and when you hold them, you create a home within yourself. You become rooted, and from that root, you will not be swayed by shallow affections or performative love. You will recognize immediately what is not for you, not with bitterness, but with clarity. When you know who you are no longer tempted by love that asks you to become less. You no longer beg to be seen because you have seen yourself. You do not plead to be chosen because you have already made the most important choice: to stay with yourself, to honor your soul, to refuse to abandon your own heart just to make someone else feel comfortable. And that is the power of complete self-love. It refines your vision. It sharpens your discernment. It teaches you to walk away from half-truths and half-loves without guilt. It shows you that loneliness is not the enemy, self-abandonment is. That being alone is not a punishment, it is preparation. It is the sacred space where you remember who you are and what you deserve. You see, when you no longer crave love from a place of deficiency, you will only accept love that meets you in your fullness. You will stop chasing. You will stop compromising. You will stop shrinking. You will simply be. And those who are meant to walk with you, those who speak the language of your soul, will feel drawn not to your pain, but to your wholeness. And that is when love transcends the ordinary. That is when love becomes real. Because when you love yourself completely, you no longer make room for anything less. Love, in its truest form, begins not in the presence of another but in the clarity of the self. What we often believe to be love is merely a projection of our unmet needs, our forgotten dreams, our silent wounds. We see someone, we feel drawn, we are stirred, and we think it is about them. But the intensity we feel is often a reflection of something buried deep within us. something that longs not for another but for recognition, for wholeness. The way we love ourselves becomes the mirror through which others learn to love us. Not by what we say, not by what we demand, but by what we embody. If you walk into a relationship doubting your worth, unsure of your beauty, ashamed of your past, you will attract someone who confirms that doubt. Not consciously, not maliciously, but inevitably. Because the energy you carry teaches others how to treat you. And if your love for yourself is fragmented, then the love you receive will be too. We are not born knowing how to love ourselves. We are born whole, but we forget. Through the wounds of childhood, through the expectations of society, through the disappointments of life, we forget. We begin to believe that love must be earned, that affection is conditional, that our value is determined by what we give, how we look, or how useful we are. And so, we bend, we perform, we overextend, all to be seen, all to be chosen. And in doing so, we lose the very essence that would have drawn true love to us in the first place. But something remarkable happens when we stop seeking love as a solution and begin to treat it as an extension. When we do the inner work to truly see ourselves, our brilliance, our wounds, our contradictions, we become whole. Not perfect, but whole. And from that wholeness, love stops being a rescue mission and starts being a sacred exchange. We are no longer trying to be completed. We are sharing our fullness. We are offering what we have cultivated within. This is why self-love is not vanity. It is not arrogance. It is preparation. It is the soil in which conscious love can grow. Because love is not just about being held, it is about being understood. And no one can understand you if you do not first understand yourself. When you look inward and learn to hold space for your own sorrow, your own joy, your own complexity, you develop the capacity to hold space for another, and more importantly, you develop the discernment to know who is worthy of being held by you. The world teaches us to look outward, to chase, to win, to impress. But love does not work this way. Love is not earned through effort. It is recognized through resonance. You do not convince someone to love you. You become so in tune with yourself that those who are meant for you feel it, not through persuasion, but through presence. And when you carry yourself with the quiet dignity of someone who knows their worth, you stop entertaining those who do not. You see, most people are not afraid of love. They are afraid of themselves. They are afraid of what love might reveal, of what parts of them might be seen, of what truths they can no longer run from. But when you love yourself completely, you no longer fear exposure. You are not looking for someone to complete your image. You are looking for someone who sees through it. Someone who meets you beyond the mask, beyond the persona, beyond the performance. Someone who meets your soul. And that kind of connection cannot happen if you do not first meet your own soul, if you do not first become intimate with your own silence, your own longing, your own truth. Because the love you attract is always a reflection of the love you offer inward. If you treat yourself with reverence, you will not tolerate disregard. If you nurture your own heart, you will not allow it to be mishandled. If you value your peace, you will not choose chaos in the name of connection. This is how you begin to distinguish real love from the imitation. You no longer fall for flattery. You look for honesty. You are not seduced by charm. You crave presence. You are not impressed by promises. You are moved by consistency. And you no longer chase what runs, because you have learned that anything not grounded in truth is not worth holding on to. When the love within is pure, the love you allow becomes sacred. The reason so many people settle for mediocre love is not because they don't want something deeper. It's because they don't believe they can survive without being needed by someone, anyone. When the soul is still starving for affirmation, for presence, for warmth, it will accept even the smallest crumbs and call it a feast. What is tragic is not just the pain of unfulfilling relationships, but the illusion that such relationships are the best one can do. that this is simply what love is supposed to feel like: strained, uncertain, fragile, always halfway there. But that isn't love. That's fear. That's emotional scarcity disguised as connection. That's the echo of unresolved wounds masquerading as compatibility. When you have not yet learned to sit with yourself, to know yourself, to love yourself, your desire for companionship is not born from wholeness, but from absence. You don't seek to share your life, you seek to fill a gap. You don't offer your presence, you offer your panic. So you hold on to people who don't see you. You fight for attention that should be freely given. You call passion what is actually anxiety, confusion, longing for validation. And in all of this, you begin to build a story that love hurts, that love is unstable, that love always leaves. But love doesn't leave. What leaves is your false self, the one that was trying so hard to be enough for someone who was never meant to stay. The truth is that when you begin to love yourself completely, that desperation begins to dissolve. You stop clinging to situations that hurt you. You stop needing people who do not care for you. You stop chasing after temporary highs and start cultivating inner stability. Your heart no longer moves from a place of urgency, but from a place of calm discernment. You begin to understand that loneliness is not a punishment, and connection is not a reward. They are both simply states of being, neither good nor bad, just moments, experiences, invitations. And when you are at peace with yourself, you stop fearing solitude. You begin to welcome it. You learn to hear your own voice in the silence. You begin to rebuild the relationship that matters most, the one with your own soul. It is this relationship that becomes the blueprint for every other connection. When your emotional cup is full, you no longer drink from poisoned wells. You no longer accept attention in place of affection, lust in place of love, possession in place of partnership. You are no longer impressed by how someone makes you feel in fleeting moments. You are attentive to how someone treats your heart over time. Someone overtreats your heart over time. People often think the solution to bad love is better love, but it's not. The solution is to stop needing love as a way to feel whole. The solution is to turn inward, to meet the pain, the loneliness, the longing, and to stay with it. Not to numb it, not to escape it, but to witness it. To ask yourself why you think you're not enough on your own. To ask yourself why you feel safer in chaos than in clarity. To ask yourself why love that doesn't see you still feels better than no love at all. Because only when you ask these questions, when you truly look at the roots of your desire, do you begin to awaken. You begin to see the truth, that you are not broken, that you never were, that you were simply never taught how to be with yourself, that you were conditioned to believe that love must be earned, chased, suffered for. But love that is real, love that is sacred, does not come at the cost of your self-respect. And so, as you heal, you begin to change. Your taste shifts, your tolerance shrinks, your intuition sharpens. You no longer find chaos exciting. You no longer find inconsistency romantic. You stop interpreting emotional unavailability as mystery. You no longer need someone to fix you, complete you, save you. You just want someone who is willing to walk beside you, honestly, openly, peacefully. And that kind of love does not come to the version of you that is still begging to be chosen. It comes to the version of you that has chosen yourself, fully, finally, and without apology. That is when love becomes freedom, not fear. There is a deep and sacred truth that most people spend their lives avoiding. You must learn to be alone before you are ever truly capable of loving someone else. Not just physically alone, not just without a partner, but emotionally, spiritually, soulfully alone. With yourself, in your presence, in your silence. Most people rush to fill that space, mistaking emptiness for loneliness, and believing that the cure for discomfort is another person. But that is not healing. That is distraction. and love born from distraction is destined to be shallow. The ability to be alone is not a punishment. It is the most courageous act of self-acknowledge. It is where you meet the parts of yourself you've been running from. It is where your wounds speak, where your fears emerge, where the masks you wear dissolve. It is not easy to sit in that space, to feel the weight of your unmet needs and abandoned desires. But it is necessary, because in that stillness the truth surfaces. Not the stories you've been told about who you should be, but the quiet, unwavering reality of who you are. When you resist being alone, you inevitably compromise. You stay too long. You say yes when your soul says no. You keep quiet when your heart wants to speak, and in doing so you betray yourself. You begin to think that it's better to have someone, anyone, than to have no one at all. But the moment you accept that lie, you begin to settle. You begin to shrink. You begin to mold yourself into what others want, hoping that if you make yourself small enough, agreeable enough, pleasing enough, you won't be left behind. But the truth is, you are already abandoning yourself in that process. You are already alone, even while you are with them, because they do not see you, and you are no longer showing up as you. So the loneliness you feared does not disappear. It grows louder. It becomes more painful, more consuming. And still you stay, not because you are happy, but because you are afraid. This fear, the fear of being alone, is one of the greatest traps of mediocre love. It is what binds people to relationships that suffocate their spirit. It is what convinces them that discomfort is normal, that love is supposed to be hard, that they should be grateful for whatever they get. But love is not supposed to feel like surviving. Love is not meant to be earned through endurance. Love, real love, is a meeting between two whole people, not two broken pieces trying to fit. To reach that kind of love, you must walk the path of solitude. You must become familiar with your own company. You must learn to enjoy the sound of your own voice, to appreciate the rhythm of your own breath, to trust the wisdom that comes from your own stillness. This is not isolation. This is preparation. It is the foundation upon which sacred love is built. When you are no longer afraid of being alone, your energy changes. You no longer attract relationships rooted in need. You stop tolerating behavior that once felt acceptable. You no longer chase the ones who run or cling to the ones who give just enough to keep you there. You rise into a new frequency, one that only those who also know their worth can truly meet. And that is when love transforms. It becomes a space where you can be fully yourself, without fear, without shame, without performance, because you have already seen yourself, you have already held yourself in the dark, you have already made peace with your flaws and befriended your solitude. You don't need someone to fix you. You don't need someone to validate you. You are not looking for rescue. You are simply looking to share the beauty you've discovered within. And the right person, the one who has also walked through their own solitude, who has faced their own fears, who has chosen themselves, they will recognize you. Not because you fit their expectations, but because your soul speaks the same language. There will be no grasping, no pretending, no convincing, just presence, just truth, just love, born not from fear, but from freedom. When you are at peace with being alone, you will never again accept love that costs you your peace. One of the most overlooked reasons we stay in unfulfilling relationships is because we've never actually paused to ask ourselves what we truly want. Not what we've been told to want, not what we think we're supposed to want, but what we, in the quiet of our own being, long for in love. We carry within us 1,000 unconscious ideas about romance, about worth, about what love should look like. Most of them are inherited, picked up from childhood, shaped by broken models, cemented by heartbreaks. And unless we question them, we repeat them. We confuse attention for affection. We settle for chemistry without depth. We tell ourselves it's okay if we're not truly seen, so long as we're not alone, and when that becomes our standard, we become susceptible to the shallow, to the fleeting, to the half-present. We start calling connection what is really just familiarity with pain. We interpret the rush of anxiety as passion, and we confuse longing with love. But there is a world of difference between the two. When you begin to love yourself completely, you stop accepting what merely resembles love. You start seeing clearly. You start noticing the places where you've been molding yourself to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. You realize how often you've silenced your inner voice just to maintain closeness, how much of yourself you've hidden for fear of being too much or not enough. And with that awareness comes a powerful shift, the decision to no longer shrink to be chosen. That's when you begin to rewrite the story. That's when you sit with yourself and ask, not what do I think I need from another, but what does my soul actually crave? Do I want peace, but keep chasing chaos? Do I long for depth, yet keep falling for surface? Do I seek honesty, yet allow myself to be entangled in confusion and games? These questions are uncomfortable, but they're essential, because you cannot attract what you are not yet honest enough to admit you deserve. The most painful loves are not the ones that ended. The most painful loves are the ones we stayed in while abandoning ourselves. The ones where we gave and gave, hoping that someone would finally give us back to ourselves. But that return never comes from the outside. It is an inner awakening, a moment of truth when you say, I deserve more than this, and actually believe it. Not from bitterness, not from ego, but from clarity. And clarity changes everything. You begin to notice the difference between someone who wants you and someone who values you, between someone who needs your presence and someone who honors your essence, between someone who likes the idea of you and someone who is willing to meet all of you. The light and the shadow, that discernment comes not from external advice, but from the depth of your self-relationship. To get there, you must be brave enough to let go of what only half fits. You must be willing to be misunderstood, to say no when your heart says no, even if it leaves you alone for a while. You must trust that loneliness is not the enemy of love. Settling is. You must stop trading your intuition for temporary companionship. Stop ignoring the unease in your chest just to keep the illusion of closeness alive. Because the more you align with who you truly are, the more obvious it becomes when something is not aligned with you. It doesn't mean you'll stop feeling drawn to what's familiar, but it means you'll stop choosing it, because you'll know, deeply, that your heart was not made to carry love that makes you question your worth. The irony is that when you start walking in this kind of self-honoring truth, you become more magnetic, not to everyone, but to the right ones. The ones who see you clearly because you've dared to see yourself. The ones who love from fullness, not fear. The ones who bring peace, not confusion. The ones who don't want you to perform for love, but simply to be in it, freely, fully, truthfully. When you get honest about what your soul wants, you stop wasting time on what it doesn't. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they realize they've spent more time trying to be loved than learning how to love themselves. It is a quiet realization, sometimes painful, often humbling, that all this time what you were really looking for in another was a reflection of something you had not yet claimed within. You wanted to feel chosen, not because you didn't matter, but because you had forgotten that you already did. You see, the relationships we attract are often mirrors. They reflect back to us the parts of ourselves we're still wrestling with, the needs we've neglected, the wounds we've avoided. And when we haven't yet made peace with ourselves, we look to others to do it for us. We expect them to heal us, to reassure us, to make us whole. We unconsciously ask them to carry the burden of our unlived life. But no one can do that for you. No one is meant to. That kind of weight cannot be carried by love. It can only be transformed by consciousness. When you truly begin to love yourself, not just in theory, not just in fleeting moments of affirmation, but deeply and consistently, something shifts. You begin to reclaim your energy. You begin to pull back all the fragments of yourself that you gave away just to feel worthy. You no longer look for someone else to confirm your existence. You become your own anchor, your own source, your own sanctuary. And from that place, your relationships begin to change. You're no longer attracted to drama, to chaos, to emotional inconsistency. You stop romanticizing intensity that only leaves you empty. You stop calling unpredictable love exciting. What once felt magnetic now feels exhausting. Because when you're rooted in yourself, you no longer crave what confuses you. You crave what calms you, what nourishes you, what reflects back the peace you found within. That's the paradox. When you're desperate for love, you often miss the love that's actually good for you. Because love that is secure, steady, healthy, it doesn't come wrapped in fireworks. It doesn't leave you breathless with uncertainty. It comes quietly. It feels safe. It feels slow. It feels like home. But until you've become a home to yourself, you'll overlook that kind of love. You'll think it's boring. You'll think something's missing. You won't realize that what's missing is the part of you that finally feels safe enough to be loved without fear. The more you love yourself, the more clearly you see the difference between connection and attachment. Attachment says, I need you so I can feel whole. But connection says, I choose you because I'm already whole. That difference is everything. It's the line between entanglement and freedom, between dependency and devotion, between fear and love. But loving yourself is not about perfection. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about embracing exactly who you are and meeting every part of yourself, the joyful, the broken, the afraid, the strong, with compassion. It's about holding your past, not with judgment, but with understanding. It's about recognizing your patterns, not with shame, but with honesty. It's about becoming so familiar with your own truth that you're no longer swayed by people who try to sell you theirs. Because when you are anchored in self-love, you don't need someone to complete you. You are not auditioning for love. You are not trying to convince anyone of your worth. You are simply showing up, fully, and allowing those who resonate with your truth to stay. And those who don't, you let them go. Not from anger, not from pride, but from clarity. That clarity is what protects you from mediocre love. It's what helps you walk away from almosts, from maybes, from halfway efforts. It's what keeps you from bargaining with your own soul just to feel chosen. Because once you've truly chosen yourself, no one else's approval feels essential. No one else's absence feels like a loss of identity. You are still whole. You are still here. You are still enough. When you love yourself completely, you don't just avoid mediocre love. You become a magnet for sacred love, for honest love, for love that doesn't ask you to change, but invites you to grow, for love that doesn't confuse you, but calls you home. So in the end, it's not about finding love. It's about becoming the kind of love that no longer accepts anything less than truth. When you love yourself completely, you set a standard not through words, but through presence. You walk through the world with a quiet certainty that says, I will wait, I will trust, I will not settle, because I already know what I am worth. And in that knowing, you no longer chase love, you attract it. The kind that doesn't ask you to shrink, to beg, or to break, but the kind that meets you fully as you are, and chooses you, not out of need, but from soul. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more videos just like this. Thank you.